Well, here I am, doing a little bit more content. Kinda taking back some autonomy, if you will. I mentioned before that I stopped making content for both the Facebook page and for the YouTube channel. There again, some of that's going to be talked about in the future, still trying to figure some things out. The topic that I'm going to talk about in this video is pretty, it's probably going to be pretty sensitive. A little bit of the reason why I say that is because there's a kind of a split in the church right now over some of this. Understandably so to some degree, but I think what we're seeing is a bit of a change in, how do I want to say this? I think there's some change happening in the minds of some people who, at the outset of all of the COVID-19 responses and reactions, were saying things to me in particular that you stop overreacting, you need to just do as you're told, you talk about this too much, you seem to be singularly focused on this, you gotta let it go. Just the other day I had a Christian comment to me that I just need to trust the Lord and read the Bible and all of this is going to work out. And it wasn't meant as an encouragement, it was meant as a rebuke. And I'm alright with that. Sometimes we need to be rebuked. But the problem is that the church is entirely too divided, and right now one of the problems is that the division that's fostered in the church is actually coming from a few different directions, and a lot of it started several years ago, especially if you're at all aware of the Gospel Coalition's MLK 50 conference. It was the beginning of the injection of things like intersectionality and critical race theory and the social justice movement into the church. Several well-known pastors, several well-known writers spoke out against what they saw happening in that respect. But it has snowballed, and it has basically gone unchecked in evangelicalism in the United States. Then I want to almost say worse still has been the response of the church to government overreach in COVID-19 restrictions. And like I said, what I've seen here in the last several weeks are Christians who formerly were kind of fed up with me are now starting to say things like, no, I'm starting to see it. And those aren't just marginal Christians. I'm talking about people who I share a lot in common with doctrinally and theologically. However, a lot of church leadership is not divided. I would say across the board, the majority of churches, solid churches even, are still kind of towing the governmental line. Kind of towing the line that's being established by whoever their governor or their regional authority is. And I use that term authority in a very, it's cheeky way. Here in the United States, elected officials, and you've all heard me say this 1,000 times over since I launched my channel, elected officials are not our authority. The Constitution is our authority. Our elected officials are servants of us. We are the authority over them. The Constitution is the authority over us. Here in the United States, we the people have final say based on what the Constitution says. But many churches and many Christians for the last several months, since pretty much the beginning of March, have kind of acquiesced and handed all control of their lives, including how they worship, over to governing authorities. It's sickening. And so where we're at now is church leadership, whether it be if you're Presbyterian, sessions, if you're Reformed Baptist, your board of elders, if you're elder rule, that is. If you're more of a Congregationalist, the pastors and the deacons, and even others like Lutherans or Episcopalians, and we could go a lot of directions with the more mainstream and left-leaning congregations, but a lot of leaders within the churches, a lot of the shepherds, are still taking directions directly from the government and making decisions that are based solely on not wanting to run afoul of elected officials and their representatives. And that has begun to play out in just a massive number of local congregations in any number of communities, whether they be large or major metropolitan areas. A lot of these congregations are requiring that if you wish to attend worship in person, you must sign up for it. This came to a head for me personally several weeks ago when I made the decision that I'm not leading my family back to worship in person as long as there is a requirement for us to sign up for service ahead of time. And I did share that with our teaching pastor, our preaching pastor, and in a very wonderful conversation. He responded very well. I told him he could feel free to share that with the elders of the church. It has nothing to do with anything that they've done personally, but I will not put my family's name on a registry. Whether it's right now strictly for church use to plan how to seat people, or if it's mandated by the government, I will not do that. I have several reasons why. Now I'm going to fast forward to just this last week, a church that I formerly attended, a church that my family and I were members of up until several years ago. And I still pay some attention to them. There are people there that I care about. They put out a statement on their website. Excuse me, I need a drink. They put out a statement on their website about their requirements when they start in-person worship. And this church is Sojourners Church in Albert Lee, Minnesota. A lot of people there probably don't remember me. The current pastor has never met me, doesn't know me from Adam. But, see what I did there? Their statement is problematic, and here's why. They've bought in hook, line, and sinker. They have whole cloth into government mandates. Here's part of the statement. I'm going to read a little bit of it. At Sojourners Church, we believe the Lord Jesus has called us to regularly assemble in public worship each Lord's Day. Yet, during the COVID-19 crisis, the Lord has providentially hindered us from gathering. God is sovereign. Nothing happens outside of His control. The free will of man can affect nothing that God has ordained. However, let's not lay the blame for churches, Sojourners Church. Let's not lay the blame for what's happened at the feet of God. All right? Let's not do that. Let's just be honest. Churches are being hindered by evil authorities. By evil authorities. That's what it is. It's got nothing to do with God's will for the church, in the sense of God's decided for some reason that we shouldn't be worshiping in person. Because that goes against everything God has commanded of us. He has commanded the corporate gathering. He has commanded the bodily gathering of the local church body for numerous reasons, for the edification of the saints, for their rebuke, for their encouragement, for learning, for sustenance, and on and on and on. So that statement is just, it's an appeal to sound doctrine, but it's a twisting of sound doctrine. Kind of normal for Sojourners as of late. Out of love for our neighbors and in honor of those in authority, there again, complete misunderstanding of Romans 13, 1 through 7, we have not met for in-person worship since March 15th of 2020. So we're talking March, April, May, and into June. So pretty much 4 months. Recently, Governor Walz, in partnership with the CDC, issued new guidelines permitting churches. See how that's worded? In partnership with the CDC, issued new guidance permitting churches to gather for public worship. This guidance requires social distancing, caps indoor gatherings at 50% of a space's occupancy limit, and requires that churches develop and implement a COVID-19 preparedness plan. We believe we can follow these provisions and exercise appropriate caution to minimize the risk of spreading COVID-19 while resuming our in-person public worship services. Therefore, Sojourners Church of Albert Lea, Minnesota plans to resume in-person worship services on June 21st with the following procedures. And they go into their capacity of 233, which means that in person it's going to be capped at 116. They talk about vulnerable and sick people being encouraged to stay home. They go on about how family units will be kept 6 feet apart from other family units. Masks are intended to prevent the spread of COVID-19 from the mask wearer to others. Wearing a mask is tangible, and this is what really gets me. Wearing a mask is a tangible way we can communicate love of neighbor. What? Therefore, Sojourners Church employees and volunteers will wear a mask while serving during the service, except while leading, singing, or preaching. All others are encouraged but not required to wear a mask. Cloth masks will be available to take home for those who do not have a mask but wish to wear one. And there again, things go on and on and on about how they're going to do communion, the Lord's table. All of that's troubling. I don't see wearing a mask as being any more indicative of love for neighbor. And here's what I would say about that. I very clearly carry a firearm everywhere that I go. 98% of the time I carry that firearm concealed. Yes, I am permitted. I am allowed to do so. Thank you to Big Brother for allowing me to exercise my Second Amendment right. But I carry a weapon, not just for myself protection, but I also carry that weapon to protect others and intervene when my neighbor, whoever it might be, could possibly be facing injury or death at the hands of a nefarious, God-hating criminal. Yet I've been told in churches that me carrying a weapon is not loving my neighbor. Now I can go through and I can explain why me carrying a weapon is actually a greater sign of love for neighbor than wearing a mask, which has been proven, or not been proven, we should say, to actually have any kind of beneficial effect. Especially when our own governor has said here in the state of Minnesota that masks really don't do anything other than the psychological encouragement of others. So all of this is problematic. The bowing down to Governor Walz, treating Governor Walz as if he is an authority in the United States when he's doing everything that he can to violate the Constitution, which is the authority of the United States, and therefore the rules and the edicts that he's issuing have no authority, and he cannot enforce them. All of those are problematic. The statement about loving neighbor is problematic. I can't say it enough times. I can't say it in enough ways. here's the part that I really struggle with. If you attend, and this is under their contingency plans on the Sojourner website for Albert Lea, Minnesota. If you attend a worship gathering at Sojourners and then test positive for COVID-19, you must notify Pastor Tyler immediately. We will use attendance records to notify anyone potentially exposed. We will also cooperate with public health officials in such a situation. We will suspend in-person gatherings for a minimum of 14 days. If Pastor Tyler or anyone in his family shows signs of physical illness, the elders will determine whether or not to cancel in-person worship services for that Sunday. If the church does not meet due to exposure or illness, we will make online options available for those Sundays. So, did you hear that? I'm sure you did. If you test positive, you will notify the elders. You will notify Pastor Tyler immediately. You will. If you've attended worship and you test positive. And they will voluntarily turn those records of attendance over to public health officials. Folks, I don't care if you're a Christian or not, this should terrify you. Here is a church that is acquiescing to the demands of government. And I don't just mean in keeping laws like turning over child molesters or turning in someone who has proven to be a threat to the safety of the community. And I would tell you that Sojourners has a definite tact towards social justice in their blood. They're moving the same direction as Bethlehem Baptist of the Twin Cities, and part of that is because most of their leadership comes from Bethlehem Baptist. They're trained through Bethlehem Baptist now, and Bethlehem Baptist has gone social justice. They're fully woke. So they are willing to turn over the membership rolls and attendance rolls to the government. And I want you to understand this. This is why this is problematic. That means once they turn that over, the government can come to you and force you into your home. And if you refuse, they could force you into some sort of quarantine. Now, no one's suggested that for the state of Minnesota yet, but make no mistake, these COVID-19 preparedness plans that churches are being required to have in place, these sign-up rules that churches are requiring their members and visitors to sign, to be put on, these registries, this is only being done for one reason and one reason only. And that's for government control. That's to turn them over to governing servants so that those servants can track you down because you have now become a danger to our society. Like in a time and a place where state upon state, governor after governor, mayor after mayor can't even track down people who have been caught on video cam, on security cameras, on Facebook Live video, on Twitter feeds and YouTube feeds. They can't track these people down when they burn down buildings. We're going to trust them to not take advantage of the Christians for worshiping, and somebody may get sick? Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters in Christ, brothers and sisters of reasonable constitutional views, this is terrifying. When churches are going along with ungodly authorities, when churches that are supposedly solid, churches that are supposedly reformed evangelical, are bowing the knee to Caesar, we have a problem. And it is not pleasant to think about where this goes. Could they track us down? Absolutely. There's not a lot of hiding in the United States right now. But churches should not be going along with this at all. And for a church to boldly proclaim that not only are you going to turn that information over to the pastor, but the church itself is going to turn your information over to the state, that's wrong. Any church that does this should not be attended. Any elder who approves of this is in violation not only of the privacy of their flock, but they're endangering their flock. They're not understanding their role as elders. They're not understanding their role as citizens of the United States. If your church requires this of you, and they tell you, we will turn this over, you need to run from that church. You need to run from that local body, because they have apostatized. Period. They've apostatized. And it should not be allowed. So either take your church back or find a church that won't do this. Now, sounds radical. I know. And I'm probably going to alienate quite a few of my Christian brothers and sisters. I might even alienate people that I attend church with now. And that's not my goal. But my goal is to wake people up. And so if you're seeing this, and you're thinking to yourself, why does this bother me? It's because this is how they get into the churches. Why are we bowing to them? Why are we bowing the knee to Caesar on this? Why are we following Caesar's prescription? And I don't care if Caesar is Governor Walz or Governor Pritzker of Illinois or any of the others. Why are we bowing the knee to Caesar? Why are we bowing the knee to little governors of regions when it comes to how we worship, when it comes to where we worship, and how many of us worship? Why are we bowing the knee? And even non-Christians who understand what's going on are going to agree with me on this. Period. I don't care how much of an ardent atheist you are. You're going to agree with me on this. If you have a good mind and a good head on your shoulders when it comes to the Constitution and the duties of United States citizens, Christian and non-Christian. Yeah, I will tell you right now, any church that requires you to put your name on a registry has a problem. Any church that requires you to put your name on a registry, orders you to confess the sin of being COVID-19 positive, and then promises you that all that information is going to be turned over to the governing authorities, should be abandoned. They have no authority to do that. They have no right to do that. They have no right to turn your name, your address, your attendance over to anyone, whether it be constitutionally or biblically. These are not biblically just mandates. These are not biblically just laws. These are not constitutionally proper mandates. These are not constitutionally proper laws. These are clear violations of the First Amendment in the United States, and the Constitution is our ruling authority, as I've talked about so many times. So, I've rambled on long enough. I've ranted, and I will say this. I will not attend church anywhere where I'm required to sign up to go. I don't care how much I have in common with that church. And it's not for lack of love of the local body. This is breaking my heart. This has been the hardest thing I have ever done as a Christian. I have preached the gospel to hostile crowds. I have been assaulted. I have been threatened with death. I've been threatened with violence. I've experienced violence. I've been spit on. I've had rocks thrown at me. I've had law enforcement called on me. I have had to deal with law enforcement officers who have tried to stifle me, telling me I do not have the right to do what I'm doing. I've dealt with all of that. None of that comes anywhere near the level of troublesome and terrifying as what this does. And churches, pastors, elders, supposedly solid Christians who should know better, who know the history of the United States, who know the role of the church in the Americas, in launching the American Revolution, and in forming the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Christians who know these things, who should know better, are caving in. They're allowing it to be. And that should not happen. Should be rejected by any sound Christian. Do not cave in. Do not bow the knee to Caesar. There is only one that we should be bowing the knee to. Only one. I would welcome your feedback. Agree with me? Disagree with me? Don't know how you feel about any of this? I would love to hear your feedback. Cheers. As always, thanks for watching the video. Thanks for being open-minded. Thanks for listening. I would ask that over here in the corner, somewhere on your screen, you hit the subscribe button. It's important, not for me, but because mainstream media, legacy media, isn't going to get the word out. They're not going to let people who don't toe the established line speak. So for the sake of liberty and for the sake of the defense of this nation, small little independent voices like mine need to be heard, especially the interviews. It's got very little to do with my commentary and a lot more to do with the interviews and the people who are affected when liberties are tread on. So once again, hit the subscribe button, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much. So I'm back with another installment of people who have been impacted by the government response to COVID-19. My interesting title for this particular video is going to be Close Your Business and Lose Your Business, or Open Your Business and Lose Your Business. The subject matter is based off of a conversation that I had with a friend. She's been a friend for about 13 years. I've gotten to know her through her business. She's a massage therapist, and she's also a homesteader. Overall, she's doing okay. She has food. Her and her husband are well prepared to survive, but they were well prepared to survive before all of this. What has changed for her is the loss of connection to people that she has developed friendships with over the years. Her clientele are not just nameless, faceless people who pop in and out of her building, but they're really friends. They're genuine friends. She cares about them. She learns about them. She rejoices with them when they're rejoicing over good news or positive developments. She is sad for them when they are hurting. She's a genuinely sympathetic person. She expressed sorrow at the loss of my grandmother. That's something that a lot of people in a lot of business environments just aren't going to do. But here's the deal. She's lost income. She's lost income. She's not being trusted by a government to be able to manage her own life, to be able to manage her business in a way that is safe for her clients, safe for her, safe for her family. And the irony of this is that, as so many people have expressed, you can go into any one of the major super centers in any decent sized town, whether it be a Walmart or a Target or something like that, even Aldi or Trader Joe's, and be exposed to any number of people. And there are places that are taking measures to limit the number of people entering their stores. Menards is now putting armed guards at their door to prevent people from entering without a mask. And even if rumor is true, check IDs to ensure that people are over the age of 16 before they're allowed entrance. So my thoughts on this is here's a lady, a genuinely caring lady, who got into the line of work that she got into because people need to be relieved of their pain. And she's been shut down. She's been told that she's not essential. And so when we look at this, and it's so easy to say, everybody's essential. Every job that earns money to put food on your table is essential. And I don't mean to imply that that's trite, because it's not trite. It's true. But here's a person who has been, in many ways, for me, a lifesaver, in that when I'm in pain, I can go to her and she makes it go away. And I can almost guarantee you that the vast majority of her clients are experiencing that exact same result from her. What breaks my heart is that she's hurting because she's not seeing people that she has come to care about, people that she's come to empathize with and sympathize with over the years. She's hurting because she's not making the money that she needs to live. And so while her husband is still gainfully employed, they live off of their income like everybody else in the world. But here's the deal. She is having a hard time with the idea of being able to take money as being self-employed. And what does that look like for her? She said to me in our conversation that there's no way that they're just going to give me that money and I'm not going to have to pay it back. I want you to think about that. Here's a person who contributes to the tax base of the state of Minnesota and to the nation as a whole. Has never been dependent on the state or the federal government for anything in her life. Not that I'm aware of. And now she's in a position, in a predicament, if you will, where she needs to really consider and weigh out what is she going to do to survive. How is she going to pay her bills? How is she going to take care of her household? How is she going to take care of her commitments without making herself beholden to a government that has a desire to enslave all of us? And if you don't believe that this is what this is about, you've got to be blind. You just have to be blind. The scriptures say in different ways, but Paul, writing to Timothy, said that a man who doesn't work doesn't eat. And so we could apply that broadly and say that a person who doesn't work doesn't eat. And in this situation, the government is literally trying to make as many people as possible dependent on them, taking away their livelihood, taking them away from those people that they genuinely care about. And that's what small business is. Small business is what it is because they learn about their clients. They learn about their customers. And those people aren't just clients and customers, they're friends. And they're stripping that away, and they're forcing people into dangerous, by their own estimation, dangerous situations where they're surrounded by strangers who may or may not be sick. They're forced to wait in lines with people who may or may not be sick, people who could be carriers or asymptomatic. Instead of being able to go to the small mom and pop rural towns or downtown business districts and do business with people who have invested everything that they have into being there for their customers. And that's what she's missing. She's missing that connection. She's missing that human aspect. It is time for the people of Minnesota to stand up and say enough is enough. It is time for us to start to defy tyrants. It is time for the people of Minnesota to say, we are not going to follow your directions anymore, Governor Walz. We're done listening to you. We're done listening to your experts who have been wrong on all of this. We're going back to the private businesses. We're going back to the small businesses. And we're going to buy the products that we've always bought, the way we've always bought them, and we're going to receive the services that we have been receiving from these people for over a decade or more, the way we have always received them. If enough of us stand up, they can't stop us all. So my challenge to each and every one of you is to find that small mom and pop place, find that small independent business owner, find out who they are, and encourage them. If you have to, you stand at their door. You get your friends and you stand at their door and you protect them from the people who would come to shut them down, and you don't let anybody in unless they're there to do business. Defy tyrants. Defy oppression. Stand up. Take back our country. Take back our state. And remind the constitutionally elected servants of the people that that's what they are. Servants. They serve at our leisure. They serve for our needs. They serve at our discretion. And when they overstep, they need to be reminded they can be taken down out of that position through recalls or through challenges, through the courts, whatever the case might be. They need to be reminded we're the master, and they serve because we allow them to be there for as long as they're there and not 1 minute longer. No longer should it be close your doors or close your doors. Or if you open your doors, we'll close your doors for you. Close your business, lose your business. Open your business, lose your business. That's what this is. None of them have the right to do this. None of them. Defy tyrants.